Let's start with the prompt. Which quotation from a work by a historian would be evidence for the student to include in support of this claim? So we're looking for a quote that's going to support the claim. And what is the claim? In this year, Congress created the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which in turn created National Public Radio, NPR. It began producing and distributing news and programming to stations across the U.S. In a paper, a student claims that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR were both inspired by the BBC, which had been established in the 1920s. So we're looking for some evidence that the CPB, which created NPR, that both of them were inspired by the BBC. And look at the years. This one was in 1967. This one was the 1920s. So let's look at the answers. Although the BBC had begun as a private corporation, politicians successfully argued to make it a public company because they believed the public broadcaster could help build national unity in the aftermath of World War I. If there's nothing better, I would pick that because it's saying that BBC was a public company, which is what the other two ended up being later. But I'm sure there's something better than this. So B, for many decades, the BBC had no competition since it held Britain's only broadcasting license. Whereas in the US, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting launched NPR in a broadcasting market already filled with competitors. So BBC had no competitors, but NPR had competitors. Doesn't really relate to the idea that BBC influenced NPR or inspired it. C, Congress's embrace of publicly funded broadcasting reflected a common belief among US politicians that the role of government was not only to ensure people's safety and liberty, but also to enrich people's lives in other ways. Well, there it's kind of saying that it was inspired by a belief among politicians in the government, which is not what we're looking for. D, the goal of BBC was to support British democracy by promoting an informed citizenry, and US legislators believed that ensuring access to high-quality programming could do the same for democracy in the United States. So here we are seeing that influence. We're seeing that the goal of BBC was to inform the citizens, and then the US legislators after that believed that they could do the same thing in the US. So that's literally a statement that what happened with the NPR was inspired by what happened with the BBC. So the answer here is D.